Okay. So the first question is, what do you think it means that all people are entitled to their own opinions but not their own facts? And so I liked that basically, my understanding is basically everyone can think what they want, but there's only one truth. And so they may be wrong, like in that one video clip. I thought that was hysterical. I love Studio C. But I love the quote by Elder Nelson when it said 50 million people can be wrong, totally wrong. Immorality is still immorality in the eyes of God. There's only one truth. Even if the rest of the world accepts something different, it doesn't mean that they're right. So they can believe what they want, they can have their own opinion, but it doesn't make it a fact. It doesn't make it truth.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And I think it gets kind of confusing because some people are really good at trying to pass their opinions off as truth. So it can be dangerous. And, people have a responsibility, I think, to try to back up what they're saying with research, especially when it's affecting so many people.
Very good point. I'm not good at talking and typing at the same time. So I'm like not saying, oh, that's awesome. I agree with that. It's because I'm typing. I'm really slow.
No worries.
Any other thoughts on that?
That was my thought.
I think you guys covered everything
in that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. All right, so the next one. Why can statements that begin with I've heard or they say be so dangerous when articulating your point? So for me, I put because it seems to state that we have no founding to our statements other than our own opinion. Opinions can be wrong, as we talked about just a second ago. So we have to have that research to back it up.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it also just kind of implies that you're stating your opinion. And, when I hear that kind of a statement, it's maybe just speculation or hearsay rather than something that's factual.
That's what I was going to say. It's just it's hearsay. It's just, I heard from somebody else who heard from somebody else. It's just, it doesn't, there's no truth to it. It's just,
exactly.
He said, she said.
It's like the telephone game. Could be distorted.
It's true.
Okay. Any other comments real quick before we go to the next one? Okay, so the next one. So far we have learned the importance of having doctrine in our hearts. Why do you think it is important to have good science in our minds and mouth?
That one I would say is because a lot of people will call us bigots or, like we're so close-minded because we have religion and all this kind of stuff. But if you actually have the facts behind you, then you can say, this is actually truthful. Like with my topic, cohabitation, it keeps coming back to the same thing. I thought it was interesting. One of the reviewers said something about it's the people that you're cohabitating with. They're not marriage material. They're not commitment material, and that's why they're not working out. Is people that go into cohabitation have no, it was an interesting article.
I like that. I think it's like you were saying. It's like the world kind of takes on a scientific view. So they want to hear that science before they believe something. So if you don't have that, they're just going to tune you out. And I thought it was interesting. In one of my other classes, we actually have had 2 assignments now where we had to post on social media something about like the family or relationships and stuff. And the first week, I posted a quote from Sister Beck, and then I posted the family proclamation. And the only one, after several weeks, the only one who liked it or commented was my grandma. And then this week, I posted something that was more secular based on, it was stating the same truths, but it was just from a secular standpoint from a book. And like within the first few hours, I had several people like and comment on it, And so that just to me was showing that, you know, people are very hesitant to accept things when you do it from a doctrinal standpoint.
Yeah.
But if you do it with the secular view at the same time and have that stuff to back it up from the secular point of view, people will listen, and they'll listen to that, and they'll actually kind of share that kind of thing, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it becomes more valid to them if you have something secular to back it up. But I love the idea of having that foundation in our hearts, because I think that's so important for us, because we know that is truth, and I think it really helps us to understand the research, because some of the research we'll find doesn't really match what we believe to be truth. And so I think it's good for us to have that foundation, so that when we are going through research, we can kind of sort through it, make sure that we are basing it on truth, because we have that in our hearts. So.
That's awesome. Okay, I think I got that down. Any other comments on that?
That's pretty much what I was going to say, so.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just finishing up real quick on writing that out. Okay, so the next one. If you were to pick a side on the Common Core debate strictly based on the information from evaluating research, which would you pick and why?
That was hard.
I think what I picked out was that, because there wasn't really, like, they kept saying studies are showing and stuff like that in the movie, but I don't think they actually said, like, which studies or any of that. But one thing that I found, though, is that the side against Common Core, they were ignored and not really allowed to voice their opinions. And it talked about, too, how the 5 out of 30 people on the board that were against it, they kind of expunged them from the record. And so those were points that were bad research from what I read. Those are signs of bad research. So that's all that I wrote. Did anyone else come up with anything?
One thing that stood out to me was they had the woman who did the English portion and the man who did the math. And it seemed like the side kind of started bashing them a little bit because they didn't validate and they were speaking out against it. So that kind of stood out to me too as bad research for the side.
Well, didn't they say something about that they were the only ones that would they were the only ones representing the math and the English side? The actual teachers, they were the only ones representing that.
Yeah, and they didn't validate it. So that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so you're saying that they, sorry, I'm just trying to type it out. So you're saying that they were against it, so that's not, so people who actually wrote the stuff are against it, so that's showing that it was probably bad research? Is that what you're saying?
Well, they were on the validation committee. I think they were involved in the process and realized this wasn't a good program, so they didn't sign off to validate it. But in the video, when you had the people who were for Common Core, they were kind of trying to put down these two, I think, to kind of discredit them in a way. So, I think that just shows on their side they were attacking without really backing up their reasons.
Good point.
And the side, I don't feel like they had much evidence to back them up. I don't know. I mean, it's hard because the video, obviously was for a Common Core, so you're getting that side of it. But the one big thing that really did stand out to me for the against side was that they said that when Common Core was rolled out, they really didn't announce it to the public prior, and they didn't have any parental involvement. And the big case on that side, and this is, the research, I did a research paper on this, was that it's so much better for kids when parents are involved in education. And so for me, that was a huge missed point for the side. I think there were some points made on the against side that I think were more valid.
I think you brought up another good point there too, that it was from the perspective of people against the things, so we have to take it and integrate. And so that was another thing, is realizing who's writing the article or doing the research too.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I kind of agree with them, you still have to take that into perspective. So let me just type out this last thing and we'll move on. Did anyone have any other comments real quick while I type that?
I would have liked to see more statistics
Mm-hmm.
in the whole thing, like what the benefit was or not. You take some children and say, okay, we're going to teach you Common Core standards, and have another group and say, we're going to teach you our old regular stuff, and see how far they improve, and what, just what the benefits, or I don't know what the opposite of benefits would be. Because I don't think disbenefits is a word, or unbenefits, or
I can't remember the word now either. What?
See? So, just what the advantages and disadvantages are. We'll just change the word completely.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think we'll start to see more of that, because Common Core is fairly new, and I don't think they know all of that yet. So I think it'll be really interesting to watch that and see what the research says.
Well, I thought it was interesting. The one guy said, he's all like, not all of us are going to be college material, and we're all prepping them to go to college and stuff, and some kids just won't. And so I thought that was interesting too, because if we teach to the Common Core, we're not teaching to the one, or the, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. They started doing that where I'm from, and my sister actually was able to get out of the testing. She's on an IEP, and so they're like, it's really just detrimental to her to sit and do this testing. It just stresses her out, and it's not really adding anything to her. And so that she actually was able to get out of it, which is nice. But
you can opt out.
Mm-hmm.
You can have your kids opt out if you want to. It's not a big deal to get them to opt out.
Yeah. All right, so the next one, what have you learned from cultural imperialism about the persuasive function of research and science in creating cultural change? So, I don't know, I had a harder time with this one. I think they were kind of saying that evidence is showing that this is the way, accepting LGBT and stuff like that, that's how you're going to help stop the AIDS pandemic. But I don't know that they really had any scientific background to say that. It was just that they were kind of claiming that it would type thing. So I don't know. Did anyone else have an answer on that one?
I actually thought of the, and I can't remember the ruler's name, but when he was talking about the ABCs, abstinence, and I don't remember what B is. Then,
be faithful.
If you can't do any of that, just at least use condoms. But that's what I kind of thought of when I read that question, because their culture was so religious based that they, their leader was going out with like a bullhorn or whatever it was, saying, practice abstinence, you will not get AIDS, or you'll have a less likely chance of getting AIDS. And then, we saw the statistics afterwards that they definitely, the amount of people that had AIDS in their little country had diminished. It was just a lot less. And then, of course, you have the whole free sex thing. Everybody just be all liberal, and then, you know, it comes on the rise again. That's how I kind of took that question.
Yeah, I was thinking along those same lines. They had the research in those countries that showed what really made a change. I think it's interesting that, you know, the more developed nations are fighting that, but they have actually seen changes. And so we're just discrediting that research because it doesn't fit with the lifestyle that people think they're entitled to live.
Exactly.
Sorry, guys, I'm almost done. Okay, perfect. Any other comments on that one? Okay, so then what lessons have you learned to make you more skillful in combating your chosen topic or threat? It's just research, research, research.
Reading, 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 reading.
Make sure you have good studies.
Yep.
Good
Good
stats.
studies. That's
Credible sources.
yeah. Okay. Anything else? Okay, I think that's it.
Okay.
So, oh, and we forgot to go through our names again. So, I'm Tiffany.
I'm Annette.
I'm Melanie.
Megan.
Lisa.
Perfect. And then I'll quickly do the last little summary here. So, we talked about how everyone can think what they want, but there's only one truth. It doesn't matter how many people in the world say it, there's only one truth, and so it can be confusing because some people are good at passing their opinions off as truth, but people have an obligation to show research, and if we are saying statements like I've heard or they say, it kind of shows that there's no founding to our statements, that there are opinion or speculations or hearsay. They may not be factual. It's kind of like he said, she said, and it can get distorted. And so we also talked about how the world has a very scientific view and they want to hear science before they believe something. Religion a lot of times is just shut down. And so people might say we're bigots or closed-minded if we just use the doctrine. But people, we also talked about how an example is, like if we were just to talk about the doctrine behind cohabitation, people might not listen, but like if we look at the research and stuff, it shows that people that go into cohabitation are those who are committed or who are not committed. So that's why it doesn't work out for you to, be committed to each other. And so we get more validation with secular material. But I liked too, we talked about how doctrinal foundation is still needed in our hearts so that we can base our research on truth as we sort through and sift through the research, finding the things that are actually true. So we still have to have both. And then, let's see. So we talked about how on the Common Core stuff, the people against the Common Core were kind of silenced. They were kind of ignored and not allowed to voice their opinion. Those who were against it were kind of expunged from the record. And then the man and woman who actually did the writing of the English and math, who later said, we don't think we believe with this, they were kind of discredited by the people with the that were for the Common Core, but they didn't really have good backing to their discreditation. And then we also have to take into account who's writing the research, and so the people against the Common Core were the ones who did the video. So we do have to take that into account when we're looking at research. And then they didn't have a lot of statistics in there, for the advantages or disadvantages. And then we talked about if Common Core is like a good developmentally appropriate practice for children, and we talked about how well, I kind of said, I don't know if I said this or not, but it kind of teaches to the test instead of actually helping children to learn. And then someone else brought up how not everyone's going to college, and so it kind of leaves out those people who are not going that direction. It doesn't take into account everything. It doesn't prepare kids properly. And then we talked about, for the cultural imperialism, about how the research, we talked about how the ABC method was showing that it was reducing the AIDS pandemic. I believe it was in Uganda, but then the liberal stance was starting to increase that rate again, even though they had research saying that it wasn't working, or that the other way was working. They kind of rejected that. And so we talked about how maybe if it doesn't fit with the lifestyle of today, research may be rejected or discredited. And then, let's see, and then the last part on what we learned about being more skillful in combating our topics is basically to just make sure that we have research to back everything that we're stating, and having that science behind us, making sure that the studies that we do use are good studies and that they're not bad research, and then making sure that we have critical sources. Should I leave anything else out?
I think you got it.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, thank you guys.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the broadcast and then